So I had a problem with the furnace at my house on Cape Cod and was away for a couple of weeks. And when I came back, I found my house was totally destroyed by the furnace pumping oil soot into the house. So I'd be out of the house for 8 months. But then in August of 1991, I finally got back on a beautiful Saturday into my house. And it was lovely. I enjoyed that weekend so much. It was nice and warm. Sunday was the Falmouth Road race. And I get up early again, Monday morning, for the routine of putting on my suit, my royal blue double-breasted suit, and getting ready to hop in the car and make the drive to Boston, which is where I worked. But I'd been listening to the news as I was getting dressed that morning to find that the rumored, not so much rumored, but the talked about Hurricane Bob had changed course. And now Hurricane Bob would be a direct hit to where I lived. So I have to make this decision on whether I stay or go. And I decide to stay. The house needs some taking care of before the storm hits. So I try and get ready, get the batteries and the flashlights and move anything outside that's going to be a projectile. And the storm comes along, though, pretty quickly. I find a place in the house tucked in a corner underneath a table that seems to be most remote from the windows. I'm talking on the phone to my parents just to have some contact while the storm is winding up. But eventually the power goes and I lose my contact with the phone too. And I'm just cowering as the wind is howling and the rain is beating the roof. I've never been so frightened in my life. As I look out the window, I can see that trees 4 or 5 stories high, are bending like Gumby. And they just keep bending and bending until they fall. Or the street poles, being held up by their wires and grounded in the earth, all of a sudden just snap like toothpicks right in the center. Never have I been that frightened. But eventually the storm begins to wind down and it quiets. And I go out of the house and the sky is blue and it's a beautiful day all of a sudden. And the neighbors come out and that's what's so good, is now I start seeing other people that are there too. But we do come to realize that we are in the eye of the storm. And so more is to follow. And it does. The wind picks up again. And so we all retreat back to our homes and wait out the rest of it. It wasn't as bad as the first part, but it was still tremendously nerve-wracking, right? Eventually it passes, and we all are out in the street again. And this is the wonderful part of it, is that you see people. And we're all looking around at this incredible destruction. And this will go on for a week. We lose power. We're all just in the middle of this mess. I'm looking at one of the trees from my property that has come and smashed all the way across the street. And the top of that tree, which is huge, is in the picture window of my neighbor across the way. But the camaraderie is what's significant about the week that will come. And I'm sitting in my driveway with my Coleman stove making coffee, and someone comes by and shares a cup of coffee with me. Or you walk around when they finally clear the streets, which means they come and they saw open a path to clear some of the trees, and you go to a neighbor who's camped out in their garage and they offer you something to drink. And I remember this. It was a couple of days later, a couple of days after the storm. And I was happy to have the socialization with somebody, but they offered me a drink. And what I remember is that it was cold. There was so little that was refrigerated at this point that it was so nice to have a cold drink. I remember standing with friends and starting to take pictures. I have a picture of myself standing in front of a tree root ball that, it's a couple of feet above me. There's this huge tree that had come down, and there were so many. And guess what? They were on the roof of my newly restored house that I'd been in for 2 days. But there were so many memories of just walking the neighborhood, because that's what you did, and meeting neighbors I never knew that I had, and just the friendliness of that. There were other things, like a few days later, having 5 men show up in hazmat suits to clean up a transformer that had come down that you've been walking around for 5 days, but they had hazmat suits. Well, okay. But what I say to all of this is that I now can watch the evening news and listen to people who have just gone through a tornado or a hurricane. And they say, "We are so happy to be alive." And to that I say, I get it. And I am grateful.